Would you please be with me? Matthew 15:21-28. Leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him crying out, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly." Jesus did not answer a word, so his disciples came to him and urged him, "Send her away, for she keeps crying out after us." He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." The woman came and knelt before him. "Lord, help me," she said. He replied, "It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." "Yes, it is, Lord," she said. "Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table." Then Jesus said to her, "Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted," and her daughter was healed at that moment.
Morning, church. Oh, that's better. No more static. Let's give this another shot. Congratulations, graduates. Alan is right. I was pleased with his little convocation this morning. He got us started on a right nerdy trajectory that we're going to get to follow today. It's kind of a special day for me. I don't know if anyone else realized or if anyone else is counting, but Maggie and I were talking. This is the 2-year anniversary of us coming to Leander. We like it. You don't have to clap, but if it feels like it's gone fast, that's a good sign. It means that we're still in a right relationship. If it feels like it's been forever, we probably need some marital counseling, and I don't know how we're going to figure that. We're just going to suppress that and keep going right along, but it is really good to see you. I'm especially excited to be here with you this morning, but I'm excited on a different level. Those of you who are around often know that I tend to get excited anyway, but I'm stepping up to the podium this morning with a new level of excitement because it's your fault, really. It's both of us, but I want to put as much blame on you as myself, because last week in the course of our message, I said something that I really didn't expect to land, and for the benefit of any of our guests or visitors here, here's how it kind of goes. Sometimes in our studies, of which now we're deep in the study of Matthew, the gospel of the kingdom, we have been for some time. Sometimes we take a small portion of text and we mine it deeply for nuggets and insights that might not be readily apparent on the surface, but they always come with incredible light bulb moments that take us deeper with the Lord. And sometimes, as we did last week, we take a large portion of text and we see it from a high view, because there's some things about a geography or topography that you can only see from the air. And last week, I admit, this is the first of 2 confessions I have for you this morning. Last week, going all the way from the end of chapter 14 to the beginning of chapter 16 was ambitious, maybe presumptuous for sure, but I think it really helped us to see something cool that Jesus was doing, because Jesus had said to the Pharisees, "No sign will be given to you but the sign of Jonah," and he said it twice, and we just looked at the material that was in between those 2 statements. Last week we saw that the sign was not only his death and his burial and his resurrection, but also that the Gentiles would be repenting and flocking to the mountain of the house of the Lord, that the Gentiles would be coming to the gates of the kingdom. And we said that he rebuked them the second time that he said, "You're not going to get a sign except for the sign of Jonah," because he said they were blind. He said, "You can interpret the weather and the skies, but you cannot interpret the signs of the times." He told them, "I see people, but you see problems, and my kingdom is made of all peoples." And so last week, as ambitious as it was, Jesus did something poetic and powerful and beautiful. But it got kind of interesting last week, because right in the middle of those 2 statements by Jesus, in chapter 15, there's a short interaction between Jesus and a Gentile woman. And it's not preached on often. It's not preached on often because it's one of the most challenging scriptures for many people. And it's especially challenging because we live in a society, in a place right now where there's a lot of racial tension. And this seems like something ethnocentric or racial that is happening between Jesus and this woman. And it's not only for that reason that it's skipped, but it's also skipped because it's uncomfortable and jarring, because it doesn't seem to be what Jesus is doing in the surrounding context at all. And so Most people skip right over it and go back to the normal Jesus programming. And last week I did that. And some of you probably looked at what we were covering and then you said, well, actually, that seems a little uncomfortable. I can see why he didn't want to touch that this morning. And some of you are more obstinate and nerdacious, and you probably said, no, Marcus, we need to slow down and deal with this because this doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. And so right in the middle of that message, about 8 minutes in, I said, hey, we don't have time to do this today. But if you guys want to do a deep dive on this, I need you to send me an email with the word crumbs. And I didn't think anybody was going to send me an email with the word crumbs. But this is what my inbox looked like. I have removed the identities to protect you folks from each other in case those of you who didn't send the message crumbs don't want what we're doing today. But there were enough of you that immediately said crumbs in the subject line, nothing else, no signature, no nothing, immediately. And there were some that said crumbs, not the muffin kind, because we had just gorged ourselves on muffins last week. And my favorite part is that most of the people that sent this sent it at like 11:22. That means y'all didn't even let me finish the sentence before you sent the message. And I didn't even notice that you guys were down in your phones. That's usually something that I see. So Maggie saw the inbox and she said, oh no, they have no idea what they've done, do they? She didn't even know what you guys were asking for. But here we are. I have a confession to make about this because this is why I love our God, and this is why I love his word and why I love Jesus so much. One of the main points that we talked about last week that Jesus was making was that Jesus had been showing them the sign of Jonah in between both of the times that he made that statement. And he'd been putting it right in front of their faces, live and direct. And so the second time they demand a sign, he says, I'm not giving you anything else because you need to go back and just look again. You need to see what is already happening. It is in front of your face. He needed to correct the disciples' perspective to see what he was doing in the kingdom. He was trying to correct the Pharisees' vision of what was happening in the kingdom. He wanted to correct our vision of what was happening in the kingdom. Where all along the way, they saw problems, but Jesus saw people, and his kingdom was made of people. And so if we look around us today and see nothing but problems in our lives, maybe we need to stop and take a second look and try to see it with Jesus' eyes. And so when my inbox blew up, I thought it was really ironic and hilarious that just like I said Jesus was calling us to do, I was not going to be able to move forward in the text, and I was going to have to come back and take another look. And here's the convicting part. When I did, though I had some plan of what I would cover if we did this, I was met with insights that I had never considered before. There were things that came out of the scripture this time that I'm going to share with you today out of a conviction, because when I went back and practiced what I was preaching, it was incredible to me what God brought out of this passage. And I think that what I'm going to share today is something that will convict and motivate you as well. It's a moment within the Gospels when we see the real gospel. It's a moment in the midst of Jesus describing the kingdom that we get to see who and what the kingdom is actually made of. And inside of this small little bit of text is a realization that I believe every single one of us needs. And I am not exaggerating. This is not hyperbole. This is the heart of the matter right here in this text today. I think your heart needs it. My heart needs it. So to all the nerds that blew up the inbox, this is your day. Let's dig in. Let's take a look. Verses 21 through 26, one more time if it wasn't uncomfortable enough the first time. Let's just read it and slow down and view what's going on here. Jesus went away from there and withdrew to the district of Tyre and Sidon. That is important. We'll come back to that in just a second. Behold, a Canaanite woman. If you're reading any of the other Gospels that record this, you won't see that. You'll see Syrophoenician woman. That makes sense because Matthew, of course, is a Hebrew, writing to a Hebrew audience, and they see them as Canaanites. But if you're writing to the Romans, like Mark was, there's no such thing as a Canaanite anymore, so he calls her a Syrophoenician. This is the same account that is happening here. It says that there was a Canaanite woman from the region that came out, and she was crying, "Have mercy on me, O son of David." Canaanite woman, Gentile woman, Syrophoenician woman, who for some reason has an odd understanding of who Jesus is. Seems to have not just an understanding of who Jesus is, but that he's of the line of David, that he's the promised one, that he is the Messiah. She has a lot more biblical knowledge than we give her credit for. That's going to be important. She says, my daughter is severely oppressed by a demon. But when he did not answer her a word, and his disciples came and begged him, send her away, for she's crying out after us. The language there in the Greek is that she comes and she cries to Jesus, but she continues to cry after Jesus. She does not let it go. It's not once, it's not twice. It is a perpetual, continual crying that she is doing. And the disciples get annoyed by it, and they say, Jesus, can you at least just do something about her? She's not going to leave us alone. And this already feels uncomfortable to me, but it doesn't get any better. He does not answer her a word. The disciples come and beg, send her away, for she's crying out. In verse 24, he finally answers. And he says, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Curious, because we've been hanging out on the other side for a minute now, and we're not in a place where the house of Israel is right now. She comes and kneels before him. The language there means that she threw herself at his feet. She is prostrate before him. Lord, help me. And he answers, it is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. We got an elephant in the room this morning, and this is why I suspect this passage isn't dealt with very often. Isn't this kind of offensive? Isn't it very offensive? There are 3 people nodding. We're going to have to be more honest with each other this morning than that. It's going to get real uncomfortable. Isn't this if this wasn't Jesus and we weren't in church, wouldn't we say that he's being kind of a jerk right now? It's kind of now y'all want to talk. I'm going to tell him he heard it. This is the most jerkish we've probably ever seen Jesus be. In the first place, he is ignoring somebody. That just doesn't sound like a Jesus quality. It doesn't seem like a Jesus thing to do. I would never counsel someone or disciple someone. You want to be just like your teacher. You want to be just like Jesus. You want to be just like your Lord. And that includes ignoring people who need your help. It's usually not how we think about it. So in the first place, he's ignoring someone. And the language says that she continually implored him increasingly, and that means that he continually ignored her increasingly. But she comes with a different level of love, throwing herself at his feet, a continual love. I can only describe that. I've heard it called the mother love. And that is the love of a mother, because mom's not going to give up on her baby, not until the very end. She's not going to take no for an answer. She's not going away. She knows where she needs to be, and she's going to see it done. So she comes with that mother love. She throws herself at his feet. She has the kind of love that does not quit, so she is not going to stop asking. And until other people intervene, Jesus doesn't say anything. Doesn't this feel out of character for Jesus? Doesn't this feel wrong? It feels wrong just on the face of the interaction, but also because we know the context of the surrounding chapters. We know chapter 14, we know chapter 15, we know chapter 16. We know that he's in this place on the other side, that he is with the Gentiles to walk in the fulfillment of the scriptures. We know that he's there for this reason, to show the true nature of the kingdom. And he's ignoring a woman whose child's life is on the line. It feels like a blinking red flashing light, a red flag, whatever you want to call it. And just when you think it can't get any worse that he's ignoring this woman, when he finally is pressed to respond, what does he say? He says something so seemingly incredibly offensive that when I skipped over it last week, y'all were like, I get it, Marcus. I understand. I don't want to touch that one either. But he says, it's not right to toss what belongs to the children to the dogs. Jesus said what? He called her a what? And we come from a historic ministry of Jesus where he looks at women who are in terrible situations and says, daughter, child. But this time, dog? Hold up, Jesus, I got a question. This is the whole point of this voyage into this Gentile territory, to be showing the world that the Gentiles are part of the kingdom too. Wasn't the point of you rebuking the Pharisees about the hand washing and the ceremonial laws, that it's not what is on the outside of a person or their pedigree or their bloodline that justifies them in the eyes of God? It's not that makes them clean. It's not your ceremonies that makes you clean or justified, but it's the heart that is inside. It's what's inside of a person that justifies and makes you clean. Wasn't that the whole point? This is the whole point of feeding the 4,000 that's going to happen in just a few hours to prove that the kingdom of heaven is made of women just like this. Didn't you just tell everyone that the sign of Jonah wasn't just your resurrection, but also that people just like this woman were going to come to the Lord and fall at his feet like she is doing right now? But not only did you ignore her, Jesus, not only did you resist her, not only are you challenging her, you are calling her a dog as well. Ladies and gentlemen, do we have a problem in the house of the Lord today? For some time here at Leander, it's become kind of our thing to make sure that we ask the hard questions. And I'll be honest with you, this is probably one of the hardest. When we encounter a problem in the text, something that jars us, something that rubs us the wrong way, something that offends us, something that we don't understand, it is a clue that we're supposed to dig deeper. And not just when it feels like we can find something about it, but in every case, we ask the hard questions because God isn't afraid of them. We ask the hard questions because there's treasure underneath of them. And we ask the hard questions because if we don't ask the real questions, we cannot make real disciples in this church. Not only that, we ask the hard questions because we are aware that God, by the inspiration of his Holy Spirit, has planted these little landmines all through the scriptures. And that these moments give us pause and they concern us and they disagree with us and they challenge us and sometimes they even offend us. But they are here because we're meant to wrestle with this word. It is meant to make us confront difficult things about us. It is meant to make us confront difficult realities about the world. It is meant to make us confront the God that actually is and not the God that we have created in our minds. And he knows that when we honestly pursue him and wrestle with these things, what he shows us will refine us and shape us and grow us, and it will force us to transform our hearts. And if you've been paying attention from the beginning of Matthew and the gospel of the kingdom, that is what Jesus is always after. Not just behavioral modification, but heart transformation. Now, time after time, we dig into these questions because we know we can trust the character of God. But we have here Jesus ignoring, rejecting, and what looks and sounds a lot like insulting someone, and that doesn't seem to me like Jesus. So we definitely have a situation on our hands. Because how does this make any sense given what we know about Jesus and in the context in which we actually find this moment? He is here for this kind of thing. He's been doing this kind of thing. He's going to do more of this kind of thing. So Jesus, what is the deal? Now I have another shocking statement for you this morning. I want you to know, if you're offended by what Jesus has just said and us being honest about it, good. I'm glad. Because our offense and our shock, taking with the context, is a clue that we are supposed to be asking this question. It is a clue that there is more to this interaction that is on the surface, more than it seems. It is a problem, it is a hard question, so let's dig into it and see what we can find. Verse 24, when Jesus answered, it goes from uncomfortable to flat out offensive when he says, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But she comes and kneels before him saying, Lord, help me. And he answers, it is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. She responds in verse 27. We're going to spend some time here. Yes, Lord. Yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. Now, Jesus' context, I would suggest to you, makes this a theological statement more than it is a racial or ethnic statement. And it's because you have to understand the history and background of the ceremonial laws that all Jews were required to follow as a part of the law, and then their traditions that they heaped on top of that to protect them from breaking the law, which included the fact that they were not to have any interactions with Gentiles at all. And so this is a cultural, a ceremonial situation that Jesus is walking into, and you can know historically that this is how Jews commonly referred to Gentiles. It would not have been a shock. Even though it's not a shock, and even though when we look at her response, she's not surprised by it, it's still offensive no matter how we cut it. That's fine that this is what the culture was at the time, but we have to dig a little bit deeper. So here is Jesus, who is operating on the basis of ceremonial clean and unclean laws, and he's also just had a knockdown, drag-out argument with the Pharisees about this, that the flesh isn't what matters, it's the heart. And yet we find Jesus here making an allusion to dogs as being unclean. Now this has a couple of levels to it, because a dog is, according to Jewish law, an unclean animal. Secondly, a dog is actually kind of unclean just in and of itself. If we just take a second and think about the picture that Jesus is painting, dogs especially back in those days, and some places in the world today, especially in third world places, are not your fur baby. They're not. This is what, long before affluent suburban women were like, hey, I'm going to push this thing in a stroller and dress it up for Halloween. And I'm not throwing shade at that. I'm just saying you got to understand this is different. Because a dog in that day at your dinner table is a really bad idea. It carries fleas and diseases, and maybe some of y'all have dogs like that and you still let them on the table, and I'm just saying it's a health code violation. Don't invite me over. We'll have you over for dinner. It's just a whole deal. Like, it's a common sense thing. This is not a good situation. This is the illusion or the analogy that Jesus is actually painting, okay? Now, a dog in that day would be under the table, especially in a Roman household. Dad is at the head of the table, kids are around, they're eating the bread of the Father. The dog is somewhere out of sight, out of mind. And so Jesus paints this picture that isn't shocking to her, for some reason doesn't appear offensive to her, even though it's shocking and offensive to us. And let's see what her counterpoint is to it. What does she say? Verse 27. Yes, Lord. There is no counterpoint. She has nothing to say. And we have to really slow down and see that she's not shocked by this statement. She wouldn't have been shocked because she's well aware of the lay of the land culturally between Jews and Gentiles. But not only is she not shocked, she's not even offended. And honestly, church, that is wild to me. Not only is she not offended, she picks up on the analogy. She picks up and runs with the picture that Jesus is painting, and she adds to it. Look at her response. Yes, Lord. Do not miss how incredibly humble her response is. Because I don't know how you guys are, but the way that I am set up, if Jesus said that to me, we have a situation. We have a problem. Look at your neighbor and say, you're a dog. Don't do it. Some of y'all did it. It's not a good idea. That's coming to divide household from household and husband from wife. That's not the Jesus we're on today. But she picks this analogy up. I wouldn't. I can't even come up with a modern conceptualization of what Jesus would have to say to me to put me in the same position, to have the opportunity to feel what I would expect her to feel. The only thing that I could think of that is sort of an ethnic issue like this is if this was 1980 or 90 and Jesus looked at me and he said, it's not right for me to give you the bread that belongs to the white guys. This is the only thing that strikes closely to what we're dealing with in this ethnic situation. And if somebody says that to me, we need to move on. All I got to say is, this doesn't seem like how you're supposed to be, Jesus. And at best, I might say, Jesus, I'm not a dog. I would expect her to say, Jesus, I'm not a dog. I know you're the one, the Messiah, the one who is to come, Son of David. I know who you are. I'm not a dog. I follow the Lord of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I am not only not as bad as the next guy, I'm better than most of them. I would start justifying. I would start comparing. I would say, Jesus, I'm in church every Sunday. Jesus, I've preached. How are you going to call me a dog? But this woman looks at Jesus when he makes this statement, and she just says, yes, Lord. Could you? Will you? She continues with something that blows my mind even further. And it blows my mind because it blows Jesus' mind, and if it blows Jesus' mind, it should blow your mind too. She says, yes, Lord, but even the dogs eat the crumbs from the master's table. We're going to take a diversion into our nerd hole for the day. This term, master's table, has a lot of good stuff to it that I feel like we need to spend a few seconds on. We're going to come back to exactly what she says, but it has so much meaning if we do this. For those of you who are guests or new here, when we say nerd hole, it's kind of like our daily double. That's what we do. Sometimes they pop up and they surprise us. The only difference is I'm not as cool as Alex Trebek and nobody gets any money. But hey, we have fun and God is glorified. This is what we're going to do today. 1 Kings chapter 17, verses 7 through 24 is where I'm going to be today. We're going to paint a picture because there's a popular or a really famous account of what happens with the prophet Elijah there. And you're going to see some interesting parallels and you're going to start to wonder some of the things that I wonder. See, it says in chapter 17, verse 7, after a while, the brook dried up because there was no rain in the land. Elijah was being sustained by the brook there. The ravens were coming to feed him. It's a famous story of the prophet. But in verse 8, it says, the word of the Lord comes to him, arise and go to Zarephath, which belongs to... Okay, that's a little weird. Dwell there. Behold, I have commanded a widow to feed you. She arose and went up to Zarephath. And when he came to the gate of the city, behold, a widow was there gathering sticks. And he called to her and said, bring me a little water in a vessel that I may drink. And she was going to bring it. And he called to her and said, bring me a morsel of bread in your hand too. And she said, as the Lord God lives, I have nothing baked, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little oil in a jug. And I'm gathering a couple sticks that I might go and prepare it for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die. And so Elijah says to her after that, do not fear, go and do as you have said, but first make me a little cake and bring it to me, and afterward make something for yourself and your son. For thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, the jar of flour shall not be spent, and the jug of oil shall not be empty until the day that the Lord sends rain upon the earth. She went and did as Elijah said. And she and her household ate for many days. The implication is that they didn't end up with a little bit of bread or just enough to get by. They ended up with a lot of bit of bread. And the jar of flour was not spent, neither did the jug of oil become empty, because the word of the Lord that he spoke by Elijah. Now, verse 17, I'm going to continue here because it's another aspect of this parallel. It says, after this, the son of the woman, the mistress of the house, became ill, and his illness was so severe that there was no breath left in him. And she said to Elijah, what have you against me, O man of God? Have you come to me to bring my sin to my remembrance and to cause death to my son? And he said to her, give me your son. He took him from her arms and carried him into the upper chamber where he lodged and laid him on his own bed. He cried out to the Lord, O Lord my God, have you brought calamity even upon the widow with whom I sojourned by killing her son? Then he stretched himself upon the child 3 times and cried to the Lord, O Lord my God, let this child's life come into him again. And the Lord listened to the voice of Elijah, and the life of the child came into him again, and he revived. What are we doing here? Ask the question when we started this section. Jesus went to where? Sidon. And we find this account where? Sidon. This is the same place where this interaction with Elijah and this widow took place. And so we have them in Sidon in the same place. We have a Phoenician or Canaanite woman with a child who is afflicted with an extreme ailment. And we have Elijah providing bread for both himself and God's chosen children, and a widow Gentile, in this case, someone who would have been called by the Hebrews a dog. And it is important to note that scholars and commentators who specialize in Jewish rabbinical teaching point out that Elijah is one of the first to be heavily associated with the word or term master. And he's associated with this term master because he's seen as a forerunner of all of the rabbis to come because of his discipling and relationship with Elisha, the person that would come after him. So the word master that she uses in this context, in this place, with this history. Are you with me, church? Somebody cooked here. Yeah? I think this is part of the reason why it blows Jesus' mind. I think this Syrophoenician woman knows her Bible. I think she knows who Jesus is. And I think she knows her scriptures so well that it puts us to shame. And so when Jesus says to this woman, it's not right to give bread of the children to the dogs, and she says, but even the dogs eat crumbs from the master's table, it's like she's saying, but yes, even Syrophoenician widows eat the crumbs from Elijah's table. And Jesus looks at her and says, ooh, you can go home. I took care of it. Girl, he says, who is this? Because of this faith. And by the way, not only that, let's go up on the mountain because I got 4,000 more Gentiles to feed because we're going to pour gas on all of this. It's time to blow this thing up. Do you see what's happening here? She's way ahead, family. She's way ahead because she's way behind in the book. And as cool as this is not even the treasure that I have for us today. Let's keep going. This woman not only has a mastery of the scriptures that amazes me and amazes you and amazes Jesus and puts us to shame, she gets it. No, she really gets it. She understands the kingdom in a way that everyone else in the story hasn't caught up to yet. And I love these moments in the New Testament. There's one during the crucifixion where there are two thieves crucified beside Jesus, and one of those thieves knows who Jesus is when nobody else in the world knows who he is. And it's a powerful moment. That used to be my favorite one. Now it's tied with this one because this woman has demonstrated by her faith that she understands the gospel in a way that nobody else has even suspected of yet. And here's the shocking part, that might include you. Look at what she says again. Jesus says, I can't give bread that belongs to the children to the dogs. She says, yes, Lord, even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table. She is unfazed, but she continues to say, even the dogs still do get the bread. She's not bothered, offended, or shocked. She's like, yes, Lord, but even though we get a little bit less, and even though we get it a little bit later, if it's Limba's bread crafted from the house of Elron, one crumb is enough to fill me forever. That was for you, Alan. They don't get it. They don't like it. I shouldn't have done that, but know that I got you. I got you. She is saying that there's enough bread for all of us, even if I just get the crumbs that come second, even if I get what's left. Do you realize that this woman is a picture of what it means to be in Jesus' kingdom? Let me explain. This woman understands something about the kingdom that no one else does. She has something that we would call a saving faith, the faith that moves the hand of God, the faith that changes things. Let me be honest with you. We need what this woman has. You need all of what this woman has, because when Jesus says that she's a dog, she doesn't get upset. She doesn't say, how dare you, Jesus? She doesn't rationalize it. She doesn't justify it. She doesn't cancel Jesus. She gets that his statement isn't racist, but it's theological. She gets that he's not saying you're unclean because you're a Gentile and I'm a Jew. She's more perceptive than that. She understands that she's unclean because she's human. She understands that she's unclean because she's a sinner. She understands that she's unclean because she's self-aware and has intuition. And that's why her response to Jesus calling her a dog is just this. Yeah, it's true. I am. I don't deserve to sit at the table of the Lord. I don't deserve to sit at the feet of that which dispenses mercy on me and lavishes grace on me. Of course, I'm unfit for this. I'm unclean. I don't deserve the blessings of God. Of course, she says, yes, Lord, I don't deserve it. And she doesn't stop there. She doesn't just hang her head in dejection and just leave. She doesn't hear that she's a dog and realize that she's a sinner and she's unfit and unworthy and just tuck her tail between her little doggy legs and walk away. She doesn't accept that and quit. Look at what she says. Yes, Lord, I am unworthy, I am unclean, but I want you to know that I know who you are. And I want you to know that I know that there's enough mercy up on that table for me too. There's enough grace up on that table for me too. Jesus, I know you are the Son of David, and I know I'm unworthy, but I know there is enough bread in the house of my Lord for the children and for me. I'm not fit to sit at this table. I'm not even asking to sit at this table, but the heart of my Lord is big enough. There is bread enough in the house of the Lord for all of us, even the dogs, and I want it. Church, take a second and realize that these two things that she says are what it looks like to actually be a Christian. This is what the kingdom is made of. This is what it looks like. When she says, yes, Lord, she agrees that she's not fit to be there. And there is nothing more true about the kingdom and the blessings of God and the mercy that he lavishes on us and forgiveness that we have by the blood of Jesus than we don't deserve it. There's nothing more true. And as long as you think you deserve it, you'll never get it. Anyone who has a spouse with them today, look at them, Think about all they do for you. If you have a good marriage, you know you don't deserve them. If you thought you deserved them, you wouldn't deserve them. I don't deserve her. That's the hallmark of knowing that you're in a good union, when you know you don't deserve it. It calls you to be something greater. This woman looks at Jesus and says, I know I don't deserve it. If you walk around this world and this life trying to prove that you deserve it, trying to deserve it, believing you deserve it more than somebody else, anybody else, you will never have it, because it's proof that you don't deserve it. And in a word, that is the kingdom of heaven. It's Christianity. We don't deserve to sit at the table, family. We're at best dogs that are under the table. And it was when this woman realized and admitted that she isn't fit to be at the table that Jesus looked at her and made her a child at the table. That's how it works. She gets it. Do not disconnect from this. Please don't disassociate from this. Jesus is doing the same thing in your life that he has done to this woman. He's not saying it to you with words, but he is showing you through your life. He is showing you through every mistake that you have ever made. He is showing you through the trials and tribulations that you have experienced that have brought you low. He is showing you through showing you the evils of your own heart. He is showing you by revealing to you how selfish you actually are. He is showing you by showing you exactly how arrogant you are. He is showing you by all the things you did that you said you would never do because you're not like them. He is showing you by the things that you do and you keep doing and you don't understand why you keep doing and you can't figure it out because you're just trying to be good enough. He is showing you that you are unfit to sit at the table. And until you admit it and recognize it and fall at his feet like this woman did, you will never have a seat there. What are you doing with it? Are you just blaming Jesus? Are you blaming God for the hardships of life? Are you mad at him? Are you justifying? I'm better than this and that, and I always try to do this, but I don't understand why other people are profiting and other people are doing better. Listen close. If you say in your heart, I deserve a place at the table, you will never have one. Ever. You cannot follow Jesus. You cannot be his disciple until you say what this woman said, and it is simply this: yes, Lord. That's how you get in. Now hang with me. She goes on. Even the dogs eat the scraps. This second part is just as necessary as the first part, because the first part of her statement is not a license for self-hatred. I know I just came strong for like the last 5 minutes, but you got to take the second half with you too. Because notice, if she just says, yes, Lord, and realizes that she's broken and busted and a sinner and not worthy, and she leaves, she loses. She never gets the bread. She never gets to sit at the table. She never gets to be a part of the kingdom. If she leaves at that point, she's done. If she doesn't have the second piece, if she just hates herself and refuses to see how great God's mercy and grace is, she still loses. So she needs the second half. She needs, yes, Lord, but she also needs, even the dogs eat the crumbs from the master's table. You can't have one without the other. I need you to get this, church. I know somebody needs this. You need this right now. We are saved by grace through faith. You cannot just take the grace part where you admit that you are busted and then walk your entire life talking about how busted you are and reject the faith part that he is a good God, that his work is finished, that he is enough, that there is grace, that there is mercy, that there is forgiveness, that there is atonement, that there is a future, and that he gives it all to you freely. You can't just have the grace part and forget the faith part. If you lack either one, you're disqualified. If you lack either one, you're not at the table, you're not in the kingdom. It's all pride. It takes pride to look back at Jesus and say, I'm not a dog, they're a dog. But it also takes pride to look at Jesus and say, my sin is too great for what you've done. You don't have bread for me. You don't have love for me. You don't have forgiveness for me. Not me. I'm too bad. I'm too far gone. Do you see, it's the same problem on two ends of the spectrum. It's both pride. Family, don't make the mistake of labeling your pride as spiritual humility. You need grace. You need faith. You need yes, Lord, and you need the bread. Your repentance has to be multifaceted. It has to admit your brokenness, but it also has to be declaring the confidence you have in the finished work of Jesus Christ and his redeeming love and grace. If you walk around this world with a continual assertion that God can't love you and that you're too messed up and that you're not good enough, it is pride and it is an insult to the price Jesus has paid to save you. It will keep you from having a place at his table. The gospel means that we need to have a low opinion of ourselves, but an infinitely higher opinion of the power, work, and promises that God has worked on our behalf. Do you see now why this woman is way ahead? Do you see now why this is a fulcrum? This is the axis. This is the heart of the kingdom. Do you see why this is the gospel lived out live and direct from a woman that no one would expect it from? Do you see how this is so deep under the surface that it happens right in front of the disciples, and literally hours later, they're going to stand beside Jesus and assume they don't have enough bread? It's crazy to me. This woman gets it because she says, yes, I'm a sinner, but your mercy, Jesus, is deeper than my guilt. Your love is greater than my sin. My Father's grace is greater than my unworthiness. Family, not admitting your brokenness is a sin, but not admitting his goodness is a sin, and both will disqualify you from a seat at the table. If I could sum it up in a word, I would say saving faith expects God to act, not because of my goodness or worthiness, but because of Jesus' goodness and worthiness. This is the reason why Jesus is astonished at the answer of the woman. So church, I say to you this morning, you gotta believe that there's bread for you. Do you believe there's bread for you in the house of the Lord? Even if it's just a crumb? Do you really believe it? This is how far ahead this woman is. This is how amazing her faith is. This is how the gospel always works. She's not alone. See, the very first message that I preached here 2 years ago was about Isaiah chapter 6. And in that account, Isaiah is taken to a vision of the throne room of the God of heaven and earth. And there are seraphim crying, holy, 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 one to another. And immediately when he's face to face with the living God, the first thing that Isaiah says is, woe unto me, I am, anyone know the word? Unclean. God is crazy, baby. As soon as he admits that, an angel takes a coal from the altar of God and flies towards him and touches his lips with it, and it doesn't destroy him, it cleanses him. And then God gives him his mission as a prophet to go to the people of Israel. This happens in the parable of the prodigal son when Jesus talks about this figuratively, because there's a man who goes and wastes his inheritance in a faraway land, and he comes to rock bottom and he realizes one thing. He says, there is bread in the house of my father and to spare. And he runs back, and admitting his fault, the father sees him a long way off, and he runs and he throws his arms around him and kisses him on the neck, puts a ring on him, kills the fatted calf, puts a robe on him, and they party because there's a place at the table for him, because there's enough bread in the house of the Lord for him. Jesus has been teaching us about the nature of the kingdom, but this woman has shown us how we get in. She knows how we get to sit at the Father's table. She knows how we receive adoption as sons and daughters. It's looking at Jesus. It's admitting who he is. It's throwing yourself at his feet. It's admitting that you are unworthy, but it is also believing in the power of his love and the depth of his mercy and the richness of his grace and the completeness of his saving work. And it is knowing that there is bread enough for you and bread enough to spare, that he paid the price for more loaves than you can bear. Saving faith expects God to act not because of my worthiness or goodness, but because of his worthiness and goodness. Church, this morning you got to look at Jesus and admit that you're a broken, busted mess. But then you got to sing the words that we sing. I'm a broken, busted mess, but all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. And so with every breath, I will sing of the goodness of God. You sing it, church, but do you believe it? Has it taken a hold of you? If it has, Jesus will say the same thing to you that he said to this woman. Your faith is great, and I've taken care of everything that ails you. If you need that in your life today, the kingdom's gates are still open wide. There's still bread and to spare in the house of the Lord, and there's still a place at the table for you. He bids you come. If you will, as we stand and sing.